Drop the mic, Stace. That's
Drop
all.
the mic. Okay, so we have two professionals here with us today, Nick Madsen and Kaylin Sortino. And Nick and Kaylin are both relatively recent graduates. Nick graduated from Morningside and Kaylin graduated from Briarcliff. So we have equal representation for the Sioux City colleges. And so first off, the topics for today are more about like getting a job. It's all about the job, baby. And so things about finding it, getting a job, finding a job that you like, and then also some of those first job expectations and how you meet those expectations. So I think what we're going to do first is we'll just have both Nick and Kaylin introduce themselves and maybe just talk a little bit about their background with their own personal job search. And then we're just going to open it up so that you guys can kind of ask some questions. And between those two and some of the OGs on the call here, me and Waters, we can try to kind of fill in some of the blanks for anything. But if these two don't have specific experience with what it is that you're wondering, I'm quite sure that they have friends who have been going through those kinds of things. So we're gonna go ahead, let them introduce themselves, and then we'll open it up. Nick, why don't you start?
All right, so I'm Nick Madsen. I'm a commercial real estate agent and property manager at NAI United. My Morningside, so I graduated recently, 2019, and I would say my Morningside experience was a little unique. So Alex knows this. I started out as an education major, didn't know what I wanted to do, changed majors 35 times, went business, never looked back. Pretty successful in business, like I did well in school, wrestled. And then, so sophomore year, I went to an on-campus event, and it was a real estate company in Sioux City, and I just hammered them with questions. What you'll find out is I talk a lot. So if I start rambling, just cut me off. And they posed the question, do you ever think about selling real estate? So as a kid, I always wanted to own real estate. My uncle buys rentals. Pretty much from that day forward, I said I knew what I wanted to do, and that was sell real estate. Fun fact, don't need a college degree for that, but still went 4 years at Morningside. And I never looked back, though. I got Stacy Hayes, helped me get an internship. Greg Berenstein was the previous law professor, gave me a contact. Stacy's like, you should call this guy. So they didn't have an internship at NAI. And that's the #1 company in Sioux City for commercial real estate. Like, they just blow everybody out of the water. So, shoot for the stars and see what happens. I cold called them, and my boss now, Chris, bought me a cup of coffee, and kind of the rest is history. During that interview, kind of said, we don't think we're going to have a job for you, but we'll let you get a feel for the business. And basically, I could just job chat them. There's a lot of restrictions when you don't have a license for real estate. And then, yeah, I just kept saying yes over and over and over. And I think Alex and Stacy would know that I usually wouldn't say no. So I was involved in a lot of things on campus. And I kind of took that into my internship. And then they offered me a job after college. Fun fact, it was the worst, like paying, no benefits. Sometimes you just got to take the gamble, and it's paying off now. Like some people would say I'm doing pretty successful. But yeah, it's definitely worth the risk. And then I'm a part of Sioux City GO, so that's what's put it on, Sioux City Growth Organization. I run the Connect chair, which works with the colleges. Typically, obviously, we'd come to campus, run a few events, COVID, so that's why we're on Zoom. I loved my Morningside experience, so that's why I wanted to join the Connect committee. And I joined Sioux City GO because when I was in your guys' shoes, I went to all these Sioux City GO events and met people like Kaylin, a few other members, really built good friendships. I knew I wanted to stay in Sioux City, so it was a good way for me to meet young professionals. And I'd say that's one of the biggest transitions you'll have is college. You're around your best friends every single day, whether that's your teammates, people that are in your classes, or club or organizations that you're in. And then you transition to real life, all your friends move away, and you got to make new friends. And how do you do that? And I would say the answer is Sioux City GO. So some of my best friends that are in Sioux City are people that I do business with every day, people that are in careers that they're striving to be the best. And I met a few of them all through Sioux City GO. So, and then I'll let Kaylin introduce herself.
Yeah, so my name is Kaylin Sortino. I am the president of Sioux City GO. So I've been the president for 2 years now. Kind of like what Nick said, I joined Sioux City GO so I graduated from Briarcliff, so no one hold it against me because I feel like this is all Morningside right now. And I joined Sioux City GO because I'm from Kansas City, so I'm not from the area. And after graduating, a lot of my friends moved from college, and I kind of wanted to meet other people and like-minded individuals that were trying to build their career and just kind of network, because I was staying around in the area and I didn't have, like, I had some friends, but I wanted more. And Sioux City GO then led me to a bunch of different opportunities and connections. So even if you are only going to stay in Sioux City briefly, or it's not your end goal, please feel free to come to a meeting or an event and just kind of meet and network with other individuals. So we're not gonna, I'll try to sell you on Sioux City if you don't like it or love it already, because it's definitely grown on me. But if it's someplace that is only here for a small time, then we'll take you also. And so with that, I am the Resource Development Director for the Boys and Girls Club of Siouxland as of 3 weeks ago. So I've had a couple different jobs, so I'm sure I might have a little more experience in certain things, I guess. I did not like my previous job that I worked for a year. I was in corporate. And before that, though, when I graduated from Briarcliff, I got my bachelor's, my master's there, graduated, stuck around all summer because I didn't really want to work, didn't know what I wanted to do. Ended up getting a job for downtown Sioux City, Downtown Partners, for 2 years, loved it. And that's what kept me in the area longer. And then I worked briefly for Mid-American, contracted through them, where then I realized that nonprofits is where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be more involved in our community. So then I started searching for other jobs and making connections and ended up getting this job. So I won't tell all my secrets right away unless there's questions about it.
Awesome. Well, we would encourage you guys as students to go ahead and unmute. If you have a question, just unmute and ask it. If you're feeling shy, you can put it in the chat. Certainly Alex and I like to talk. We can come up with plenty of questions, but we kind of already know how to look for jobs and how to get jobs. So we want to make sure that you get out of this what you need to get out. So does anybody have a question right now? Otherwise, I'm going to pop in.
Ask questions or I'll call you out.
Yeah, there you go. All right, well, while we wait for people to get unshy, Kaylin, you had mentioned that you did a job that you didn't particularly care for. And can you talk a little bit about the transition from going from a job that you liked to a job that you didn't like as much, and how you discovered that nonprofits was where you wanted to be? What were the kind of activities that you were doing that led you to believe that?
Yeah, so I am very much a people person, and I love jobs that are engaging and interacting with people and seeing people face to face. So COVID was very difficult, and Zoom calls were at least nice because then I got to see everyone still. But with my previous job, it was a lot of calling and traveling. I originally took it because where I was at, there was no room for growth. And not really knowing exactly what I wanted to do when I was a big kid and grew up, I decided to take a gamble on myself and try something different I've never done before. And the traveling around, granted, I was just traveling around Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota. I still got to travel, which was great. Sorry, my dog's on my lap, so if you see him, I apologize. And then when COVID hit, it was more so just no more traveling, just doing cold calls. I was working with contractors, and a lot of contractors, I don't know if any of you know very many, but they're older gentlemen that maybe are stuck in their ways a little bit. So with someone who likes to think of new and exciting ideas, that was just not what I was able to do at my place of work. But it was a really good job, so I kept it, and I didn't settle for a new one. I kept working and then just kind of putting some feelers out there for a job or a job field that I thought I'd be more interested in until I found this one.
Perfect. Nick, I have a question for you. So currently, like when you graduated, certainly the economy was like in a little bit of a different place. So job search in a pandemic's a little bit different. But one of the things that I think can be helpful for students when they're job searching, particularly when we're talking about maybe like more of a depressed economy, is something called job crafting. And job crafting is where you work for someone in a certain job, and then you kind of identify where your strengths are, and you apply those strengths to your job. And I feel like that's exactly what you did at the real estate place, right? You kind of made yourself valuable, and you figured out what you were good at, and you made it so that they didn't want you to not be there. Can you talk a little bit about how you were able to kind of go from them saying, we're probably not going to have a job for you, to them saying, yeah, we want to bring you on?
Of course, yeah. So I think a little backstory is my boss has a son who is the same age as me, and he was going to get into commercial real estate. So he came back, then for sure there was no opportunity. Well, he ends up not coming back, which maybe saved me a little bit, but also at the same time, I just kept saying yes. So if they ask, pretty much as an intern, it was the best internship I ever had, and I love my team that I work with, and I love that my day is different every day. But there was a building out in North Sioux City called Gateway way back when, and that closed, and so my boss sold that, and the owner split it up into 5 buildings. There was just a lot of work for me to do out there, and there was like certain things, like he's like, I'll pay you to go out there and just tell me how many miles. I never asked for mileage back. Maybe I should have in the meantime, but I'd never said no. Like I showed up every single day on time. I usually beat him into the office unless he was here by 8 o'clock. Yeah, and then any project that any of the team was working on, I would also just say yes to. Usually try to get it done and exceed expectations. So he'd be like, hey, can you do this? What I had to learn was usually when he handed me a project, he meant take the day to do this or a couple days, and I would finish in a couple hours and be like, what else am I going to do today? And he'd be like, I got nothing else for you, so just go ahead and go home. So I was like, all right, I got to start taking a little bit more time. And then just building relationships with the people in the office. I think I built a connection with every single person, and we're all pretty unique, I would say. So somehow just building a bond with Aaron in my office versus Bo, and with Nate and then Chris, and even the assistants, to where everybody was just like, we got to keep this guy around. He's fun to be around, gets his stuff done. He's going to be successful. And so I would say that building relationships with people, communicating, and how you can help. Every person needs a little something different. Chris, it was getting keys, whereas like Nate or Aaron, it might have been running financial statements and doing stuff like that. But however I could help, I was there, and I didn't care whether it was a task that's this big or it's going to take me 2 weeks to finish.
Nick, did you ever have a job that you didn't like?
Yeah, hated it.
Talk about that a little bit.
Oh my gosh. So one, I'll tell you what, I never took an internship for credit, but if I could have, and I could have been taking those like weekly, I had friends and that had internships, and you like basically blog or write little summaries on what you're doing. So I had an internship. I won't say what it was, but it was a tech company, to say the least. And I was making cold calls, which what I'll say is a lot of people on here, I would think I'm pretty weird. I love cold calling people. I love trying to sell or buy or sell commercial real estate. So I cold call people. If you give me a phone number, I'm going to call them and try to talk to them. Well, so I cold called, and I was also a marketing major. So I would create flyers, social media posts, and I kind of liked that. But when I was at Morningside marketing, I was a major in marketing for sales. Like I wanted to sell stuff. And I just hated being on the team. They basically just put me in this room and said, here's a list of 200 people that have no idea what this product is and are probably going to cuss you out. And, you know, just my whole goal every single time was just to get them to pass this lead or this random person that we don't know. We just scrape the internet for all these phone numbers of contractors and just hand them off to this guy. And sometimes they'd let me watch the demo videos and stuff. And I'm like, that was super valuable if I could, but not every time. They'd be like, no, we need you to hammer cold calls again today. It was just boring. And I would literally just sit in a room from 9 to 1 o'clock. And if I'm being honest with all you, I had till 3, but I was just like, I got class at 1:30. I got to get out of here. And they were paying me. That's probably the only reason I stayed. But as soon as my boss offered me a job here, I was like, it's time to go. I'm putting in my 2 weeks. And I was just like, I'm starting another internship. I got to go. Finals are next week. It was only like April 15th. And I hated it. But I didn't quit. I think that was a big thing. So in life, you're faced with adversity. So sometimes you just got to suck it up, and you might not like everybody you work with, but you just keep doing it. I found a better opportunity. So then I went on. It was the best thing I ever did. But don't get discouraged. Like, I was pretty pumped for the internship when I started because I was a sales intern and I thought it was going to be the best thing ever. But then it didn't turn out that way.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, I did like the team I worked with. Just specifically hated one guy who just made like bad comments to me. And I was just like, it's not like how you build a team. And maybe he was trying to joke, but I didn't get that vibe. And I just wanted to tell him some choice words, but I didn't. Stacy told me not to.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't do that. Yeah, that would have been unprofessional.
Yeah.
But I think it leads to the point of like, and I think a fear for new college graduates is that maybe you are going to get that job and you don't like it once you get there. And I think the flexibility that you have right now as a student is that you have the ability to do internships that are meant to be temporary, or start to work part-time at places, or even kind of do shadowing and informational interviews so that you can gather as much information before you start somewhere. I know a lot of students will say to me, well, if I hate a job, how long do I have to stay? And certainly, I don't think that there's any like certain period of time. From a career services standpoint, we generally would say we like to see people stay in jobs for at least 1 year. A year can be a long time though if you're really unhappy. And so if you're really unhappy and you want to switch, we would recommend that you would switch. But then the next job that you stay at, you're definitely going to have to stay for at least that year. So just kind of good information to think about as you think about the kind of job that you want to take.
In addition to internships, I think, Nick, you had a good explanation, or at least a story surrounding that. But I also think there's a lot of importance with part-time jobs and kind of the ability to network there. And I know, Kaylin, you've had a lot of experience with that as far as how that's kind of been beneficial to you. Maybe just talk about how you used a part-time gig to really kind of jumpstart and do different things with your career.
Yeah, I in high school I started doing internships. So I've actually had 4 internships before I graduated college because I wanted to know kind of what I wanted to do when I grew up. And granted, I kind of only know that a little bit now. I honestly think only a very select few people truly know what they want to do when they grow up. Everyone else is just trying to figure it out. But all my internships I'm very grateful for. I learned a lot about what I did and did not want in a job, and interests that I had versus like interests that I maybe don't want to do or utilize anymore. So I actually did, and I gotta plug my computer in. So I had an internship in marketing, and I loved marketing, but I did not only want to do marketing. And so then I had an internship in Chicago for 6 months with corporate event planning, and I loved corporate event planning, but I did not want to do just corporate event planning. So I needed a job that really like utilized all of the aspects that I like in everything in order to keep me engaged and interested, which is why my previous job did not, because I didn't do any marketing, didn't do any events, anything like that. So I suggest like always take interviews. That's my biggest thing, is like if you have an interview for a job or you're offered an interview and you don't know if you necessarily want it, go to the interview. It's like the best practice in the world. And try to do a couple internships while you're still in school to try to really figure out what you want to do when you graduate. So then you're not the very first job you get after school. You're like, well, I don't know if I'll like this or not, but let me test it out. And then you end up testing out 2 to 3 jobs within like a year and a half. And then that doesn't really look great on a resume either. So
that brings up a really great point, Kaylin, in the sense of taking every interview that you're offered. I know I can't even count on both hands the number of students who have come to me and said, I don't think I want to interview with this place, or I don't think I would like this place. And then they go to the interview and they just get really sold on the people and what they would be doing. And actually the best example I can think of is Grace, who actually works at Downtown Partners right now. Grace did not want to apply at all. And we hooked Grace up with Kaylin, and then she was super pumped about applying. And she's like, that's everything that I want it to be. a lot of times what you read on the job posting is not, necessarily what you're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, even just informal interviews with like the boss or whoever's hiring for the job. The one that I have now, I went to coffee with the CEO before even applying because I wasn't fully understanding what they wanted and who they were looking for. And that's what ended up selling me, just kind of like with Grace too. You get to ask those questions before the interview to kind of really make sure that that's something that you're interested in.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Students, what kind of questions do you guys have? Alex and I can ask questions all night. We love questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hear it.
You talked about Sioux City GO, Kaylin, and how would you find other sources like that? Because I would be interested in moving out of state and starting to work out of state. And I'm also really nervous because a lot of my friends are in Sioux City, not necessarily family, but friends that I've met in college, friends that I've had in high school and stuff. They're all in Iowa or Sioux City. So I'm nervous about how I'm gonna like make friends or have another, friend-like community once I move to a different state.
We've actually had that happen a couple times within this last year. People have moved out of Sioux City and they've joined other young professional groups in other cities or states in order to make friends and build those relationships. I think, now don't quote me on this, but I am pretty sure there is a young professional group in just about every state and most cities, and or they are building one. And so if you look on city websites, if you go to like the city council website or the city of wherever you're moving to, they probably have some sort of information of what group you could join or where you could go to find a meeting and meet other people. Every place I've traveled to for work or for conferences, they all have some sort of community like that, but it's taking that initial step to reach out and really try to find it. If you're moving like, let's say Iowa or Nebraska, you could always ask us because you know the young professional group already here, and we probably have those contacts for you that we could get you into contact with someone somewhere else, wherever you're moving.
And Tana, usually those groups are affiliated, they're called a lot of different things, but they're affiliated with young professionals. So even if you Google young professionals, comma, the state or the city, it's likely that you'll hit upon something that's going to help you connect with that group.
And some of them are on chamber websites too.
Yeah.
Did I steal your thunder, Alex? Was that what you were going to say?
It was. Well, I heard Nick said it, but Nick said it while you were speaking. And so
I wrote it down.
I was going to give Nick credit where credit was due. Nick was the one that said chamber, but yeah.
So every city basically has a chamber of commerce, I would say. And they're a really good resource. I've used them a ton just to build connections. Basically every business in town or group typically is involved with the chamber. So if you can get in with them, they'll have ribbon cuttings. And I just go there and I try to talk to one new person every single time. And I don't care if they're 20 or 80. Like I could care less. I'm just walking up to somebody and just trying to meet one new person every time I go to one of those events. And like I'm from here, so I still feel like I see familiar faces. But if you start putting yourself out there, you will recognize people that are getting involved or going to these events. And yeah, somebody would tell you about Sioux City GO or some other event or group that they might have.
Okay, and then I just have one more question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questions. I'm also like Kaylin in the way that I have a lot of interest and I'm trying to figure out which ones what career path can utilize all of them that I'm interested in like working in. And so I'm still like I'm still undecided with the with what career path I want to do and with internships, but is it possible to still do internships after you graduate basically? Because like you said, you don't want to like quit jobs so much after you graduate and start working at a new place every like 2 weeks or whatever. So would it be possible to still test out career paths once I graduate, or is no options like that? Like I need to try everything before I graduate, and then once I graduate, really stick to one thing?
I think with internships, I mean, I'm not sure, I guess, what businesses do on whether or not you have to be in school or out of school. or if they'll take either. I know that maybe one of the better ways to go about it, if you're graduating and still undecided, is to reach out to different businesses and ask them for coffee and kind of learn a little bit more about what they do, why they work at the place that they work, their interests, and what led them there. Maybe try to do like some sort of job shadowing or something like that. What grade are you? Are you graduating this May? Yeah. Or is everyone seniors? I guess I should probably should.
Most of them are seniors. We might have a couple younger ones.
I'm a junior.
Some people shook their heads, so okay.
Seth is a junior.
Yeah, so I hope that kind of helps a little bit. I don't know if Stacy knows a little more about.
Yeah, so it really just depends on the company, Tana. Some companies will allow you to do an internship after you've graduated. Some of them have very specific requirements that say that you have to take it for credit, and you wouldn't be able to take it for credit if you were already graduated. So it really just comes kind of from that perspective. My recommendation to you would be, like, I think once you start job searching and you start seeing what people are looking for, it becomes a little bit clearer than when you're just searching in industries, right? Because when you say, well, I want to be in this industry, there's so many options. But when you start job searching, then you start kind of seeing, well, these are the kind of areas that I would be involved in, and do I see myself doing that? And I would say for you, Tana, even more important would be going back to that job crafting. So finding a job that you think that you would enjoy, and then figuring out how can you insert the other things that you are really, really passionate about into that kind of job, and bringing that up with your boss. Like, hey, I took some classes in video editing and I'm really interested in doing that. Can I put together a couple of videos for our social media or our website? And in most cases, employers are going to be super happy to allow you to do those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's the best part. Like my job now, as a resource development director, I don't know if any of you really know what that is, or what the title means, because I didn't. But I do fundraising, their events, and as well as all their marketing. So I loved marketing, but I can't solely just do marketing, because then I get really tired and frustrated. I love doing events and like corporate events, but you can only do events for so long. And so having something that really encompassed all the things that I enjoyed in a job. And when I was interviewing, they weren't even going to have me do the marketing. And I was like, I have a marketing background. Like, I enjoy it to an extent. I know a little bit about it. Like, I haven't done it in quite a while, so I might be a little rusty. And my boss was like, perfect. Like, you're in charge of this, this, and this. Like, we need someone with the website. We need someone to do newsletters. Like, that's all you have to do so far. And then with events, if you wanted to do the posters and things like that. So sell yourself on what you're good at and what you're interested in, because a lot of those businesses and a lot of those bosses who are looking to hire probably don't even know, like maybe they're looking for 2 positions and you have both, like you can do both. And if you're willing to take on the challenge and you tell them in advance, they'd be like, oh, well, let's just hire one person. You can do both of these things and we'll go from there. So then they'll keep you engaged and interested too.
And I think that's why it's a good idea to really be looking at a lot of job postings like right now while you still have some time. Because the other thing that's really frustrating about job search is like stuff isn't called the same thing everywhere. So if we take Kaylin's example, resource development director, other places that might be fundraising director, it might be marketing and communications, it might be public relations, it might be event planner. And so if you're only searching for jobs that align with very specific titles, you're going to miss out on a whole plethora of opportunities. I always talk about sales. Sales is about the most frustrating job to search for, because it can be called sales, it can be called account rep, it can be called account executive, it can be called customer service, it can be called whatever the product is, rep. So there's lots of different things that it can be called. And so really the best way for you to sort of gain an understanding of what's really out there and how to search for the kind of jobs that you want is to be knowledgeable and educated about what the jobs are that are actually out there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you guys have been working in the field. I was wondering, like, what's the best way or, like, strategy to make these connections, like, when you first get out of college?
You should make them while you're in college.
Like,
and I would advise every person on this to write down their top 3 places they maybe want to work or careers, if you know where you're going to live, so Sioux City, Omaha, Sioux Falls, you name it, wherever it is, look up companies, call them, ask them 3 questions, and ask all the same companies the same 3 questions. Also, talk to Stacy Hayes or Alex or somebody on campus. They have a boatload of connections, and Morningside graduates pretty much in every city, town, state, you name it, they probably have somebody that they can give you a phone number for. And don't be afraid to call them, because if I wouldn't have called them, like if I was worried about hearing no, I wouldn't be talking to you guys probably right now. So that was the best cold call I've ever had in my life, was just picking up a phone saying, hey, can we get a cup of coffee? And then I got an internship and now have a job. So Stacy Hayes, I'm sure Alex has connections. You could ask one of us if you know what you want to do. And it might start with you getting one phone number and then, hey, do you know anybody else with these careers? And pass along information.
Yeah, I definitely would say, like, when you're just starting out, even if you feel a little bit nervous about it or a little bit wary, between Alex and I, we got a pretty big swath of our connections as well as our alumni connections. So generally, we'll try to find you an alumni first. You guys would be really surprised. I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 times in the entire 15 years that I've worked here that an alumni has said, no, I don't want to talk to that person. Alumni are generally always really happy to talk to students and provide information and kind of help you along your way. So if you're feeling nervous about it, yeah, definitely come in and we're happy to kind of talk to you about it.
Yeah,
Anybody
I
wants to
agree with
get
what
coffee,
everyone
I'll get
said.
one.
What?
Said if anybody wants to get coffee, I'll get you one.
Yeah, come to a Sioux City GO event. We'll introduce you to plenty of people.
I'll wait at the door for you at Sioux City GO.
I'll walk in with you, so in case you're nervous. My networking started, so since I'm not from Sioux City, and I will be the first person to admit I was awful in school. I did not really enjoy it to its fullest potential before I graduated. You probably wouldn't know that now just because I am so involved with everything else on the planet. But I started networking at my job. So I worked at the country club while going through grad school. And that is where I got most of my internships after the fact. That is where I ended up learning about my job at Downtown Partners. Was someone that I served who I just talked to every day and just made a connection with, remembered me and wanted to know like what I was doing, and then was like, you should interview for this job. Like, this job opened up, or at least learn about it. And if you're going to go, like if you're moving to a different city, go look and see what kind of like networking opportunities are happening. I'm sure they're happening all over the place. And even if, I always have the rule of thumb, if you go to a networking event, walk away with 3 business cards, 3 different business cards that you did not walk in with. And then at that point, then you can call them for coffee, make that connection. Or like if you're in a different city, they'll probably know other people in the industry that you're looking for, or know someone to call and get involved with. But it's all about a conversation and not being afraid to ask someone. Most of the time, if you ask someone for coffee or for drinks or for lunch, they're not going to say no. And if they say no, it's probably a no for like whatever day you said, because they're probably busy. But they have a whole schedule. And so if you just keep being persistent and keep being engaging and wanting to learn, I don't think there's anyone, there's probably a select few, but there's not many people on this planet that aren't going to help you out.
If you're going to send something off to, put a few different times and days. That's what I'd recommend. Like I said, hey, you got time Monday at 9, Tuesday 8 to 10, or Friday. Because you guys have a schedule too with classes. So maybe somebody can squeeze it in Monday, but not Friday. And so if you can give them a couple different options, I'm pretty sure 99% of people will say yes. Most people will actually buy you the cup of coffee, so then it's free, and you just go talk to them for an hour. So it's pretty easy.
All right. Any additional questions for students? We're going to kind of give you like the this is your last chance kind of warning while we kind of wrap up. Real quick, just to kind of conclude, see if students have any additional questions. Can you guys just talk a little bit? I know both of you guys were athletes. And do you feel like your athletic experience in college helped you as a professional, and kind of in what ways?
Yes. Morningside Wrestling has like the Mustang way, and I think two big things I take away are like believe and be a champion. So I tell, and I coach wrestling right now for all my little kids. So I think it's about being a champion, whether you're in a wrestling room, classroom, or in life. So like I attack every day, like I used to attack every practice or lifting or run or whatever I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to be the best. I walk in here every day. Am I the best agent here? If I'm being honest with you, no. Like these guys have a lot more experience than I do, but I come in here and I get after it every single day to try to be the best. And however I got to do that, like I write down my goals every day. I have them all right here. I just tape them up here and I see them and I killed them all this year. And then I just kept changing them and changing them. And I tried to like shoot for the stars and then see what the heck happens. So like I wanted to sell $2 million December 21st. I wrote that down and I've sold 8.4 million this year. So it's just one of those things you just got to get after it every day. And I think the experience I took through Morningside Wrestling kind of transitioned to that. Yeah, just can transition in my real world through believe and be a champion. Two biggest things I think every day.
Yeah, and I think some of the biggest takeaways with sports, I played soccer at Briarcliff, was that there are so many different people in this world. And like, just like on any sort of sports team or any team in general or group, like school group, you have to work with everyone, and you have to learn to adapt with everyone and communicate well. So I was the goalkeeper at Briarcliff, and so I talked all the time because it helped me stay engaged and it helped me direct and learn leadership. And that's what I use now. I take things into, like, I take it all and I'm sitting there and tell everyone what needs to be done. I stay organized and I keep people on track. And I think that's what I did in soccer too. And so really learning and figuring out how to communicate differently with each person. Because like I yelled a lot at soccer. Like I was not very nice on the soccer field. And then my coach pulled me aside and was like, Kaylin, you got to be nice. Like you're going to make people start crying here. Like you need to learn to talk to different people depending on what is happening. Like you can yell at Bridget, but you cannot yell at Shelby or something like that. And so I really had to learn to like read how every other one interacts and how they perceive what I'm saying and communicate, and then go from there.
What's like the hardest thing since you've graduated, and like this is like adulting 101, maybe like away from the career settings, but like an adulting thing that you struggled with during your transition from a college student to an adult?
Budgeting and finances, and I'm still not good at it. And my dad tells me all the time, I literally download worksheets from the website to keep me accountable month to month on like money and spending, because like I haven't lived with, like, it's expensive. Like rent is expensive, groceries are expensive. I have 2 dogs, they're expensive, and they don't contribute to the household. So now I know what my parents talked about when they were like, Kaylin, you should probably get a job. And I was like, it's okay. I think that's been my hardest transition, because college was nice. Like you lived on campus, or you didn't really have very many bills or anything to really worry about. Or maybe you do, and I don't know. I was very lucky in college. So it wasn't until after the fact that I really had to learn what I was doing. And I still don't know, but I'll figure it out someday.
Can say I did not have too many struggles. I'm pretty like financially on top of things, and I run pretty good budgets, and like I don't know, I've always been like that. Even through college, I saved a ton of money and think I was way ahead of the game after talking to my friends and see how much like just paying student loans and things like that. But it's just taking the time to learn it. Like I don't think they do a good enough job teaching you how to pay back your student loans. And like I got sent a letter and it was like, you got to pay this loan. I'm like, I didn't even know I had this loan. And I thought I was all done with them. And so then I just called this company and I just paid it. And then now I'm done. And then it's like buying a car. Do you know how to buy a car? Things like that. Like I bought a house, couple rentals, a car. It's like, so you got to be able to budget for all that. And then do you understand the process of getting your own insurance, whether that's home insurance, renter's insurance, car insurance, things like that. I'm pretty fortunate that my parents kind of advised me, but it is expensive. I will say that rent is not cheap.
Yeah, I was like, you're scaring me. These are things that it's not my first time hearing about it, but yeah, I am aware I don't know in a lot of that stuff. So
I
Well,
can survive.
Yeah.
If I can survive, anyone can survive for budgeting.
Well, a good promotion for you guys. We did do a budgeting session, a virtual budgeting session back in September, and we recorded it, and it's on the Morningside College PR YouTube page. And in addition to that, we are doing another session like this, adulting. That one's going to be a little bit more focused on, Tana, what I think is the hardest thing that students have in the transition is making that transition from being a student to being a professional. So we're not going to dive deep into that this time because that's what we're going to do next time. But I know from my perspective, when I started working full time, it was kind of like you go from this schedule where you're so busy all the time and there's all these things to do all the time to this schedule where you go to work at 8 and you come home at 5 and then you sit on your couch and you go, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something, or what do I do now? You know, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the area that we're going to focus on in the next session, which is going to be on November 11th. So certainly we would welcome all of you guys to come back then. In addition to that, on November 18th, also in the evening, we are doing a housing, retirement, financial-ish sort of session. So that's going to be Tom Pargett. He's an alum of ours. He's a financial advisor, and his wife Kelly, who is a realtor. So they're going to talk a little bit about, they're going to tag team and talk a little bit about life after college from that perspective.
I have a quick question for Nick.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's hear it, man.
So you're a real estate agent, right?
Yep.
And does that mean you make like a commission based off your sales?
Yeah, so I don't have I think what you guys are probably all thinking is like, I'm going to go get a job. They're going to pay me a whole bunch of benefits. They're going to pay me $50,000 a year. And I signed a job that pays me $0 a year with 0 benefits. I used to get free coffee, but then they closed. So now I literally have nothing. So I have to come to the office every day, and that's a 1099 employee. So yeah, I work 100% based on commission.
And you've sold, you said 8.4 million?
Yep, this year. Last year I did not sell that. But I've been in the business for like 18 months maybe, May of 19 or so. And my first year, in the first 6 months, so I sell commercial. So there's a difference between commercial and residential. So I don't sell houses. But if you want to buy a house, call me. I'll refer you to a great agent. I sell businesses like apartments, things like that. I love investment properties. COVID, everybody thought we were going to get killed. I'm thriving because I love talking to people and I love cold calling, and everybody has time right now to talk on the phone. So I just started putting a whole bunch of deals together and threw a couple $1 million deals together and paid the bills. And like Kaylin said, I have a dog now, so they're expensive and they don't contribute. So yeah, but it's weird being 1099. So you basically have to deduct all your expenses. Whatever my check is, I still have to deduct taxes out of it. Or if you work for somebody, they deduct the taxes and all that out of there. Now I have to do that. And so you really have to be good with budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Responsible for health insurance, sometimes office space, other kinds of insurance. So definitely there's a lot of things to think about. I always say with students who come and talk to me about commission, I usually say there's 2 kinds of students. One is like scared about commission. They're like, I'm worried to work under commission. Other people are like Nick, and they're like pumped to work under commission. And that's how you know if that's the right area for you. If you're excited about how much you could do for yourself versus being worried about not being able to make it, that's kind of like the mindset difference, I think.
It's 100% mindset. You got to come here and start hammering the phones, setting appointments with people, making connections. Real estate's a weird business where it's like I think if I could do it all over again, would I be in real estate? I think so, because I love this and I love going to work every day. But I'd also, like, as a sophomore, I would have got an internship as an insurance agent. I worked at a car dealership for a little while. I think insurance is a great business. A couple of my best friends sell life insurance and stuff like that. So I would look into doing some careers like that or getting experience in those fields because I knew I wanted to get into sales. And if anybody else wants to talk about sales or 1099, Stacy and Alex have my contact. I'll sit down with you, Zoom or coffee, or I don't care. Come to my office. Yeah, it's a good business, but it's nerve-wracking too because like January 1, I have no idea if I'm gonna make any money next year. So like I've made a decent amount this year, but it's like next year I have no idea what's going to happen. The year after that I have no idea. So budgeting with zero income is very hard. And then if a real estate transaction, I don't get paid until you get a check in your hand. So if you let me sell something or you're buying something, if you don't close on it, I don't get paid. So I work sometimes 60 to 75 days for people, and then it falls apart last second and I don't get paid. So that kind of sucks. There's zero guarantee, but high risk, high reward.
Mhm. Awesome. Any other questions from students?
When it came to signing job contracts, how did you guys prepare yourself for that? Since Nick was just going over like how he makes his own commission and stuff. Some of your past jobs, I don't know if you had it. Did you have to sign a contract, Kaylin or Stacy? Did you have to sign like a contract where they gave you a salary or one of those other type of pay options besides like an hourly pay? Because I've had part-time jobs where I've had hourly pays, but getting a full-time job, that's a whole different set of rules and plans. How did you guys go about that transition?
So in this area, for sure, most of the employers don't do contracts. So in the Midwest, we're Midwest nice. So we do verbal contracts. So
I did sign a contract with my job, but
Nick did.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It says no benefits. So I do get a small stipend I run the property management company, and now I'm like, hopefully December 31st, I'll be an owner in it, which is kind of cool. But I signed a contract basically saying that we're going to pay you X. You're going to be able to sell and make as much money as you possibly can selling. We're going to pay you this small amount, very fractional. Like every job that I went out there and they told me, we're going to pay your health insurance, we're going to pay you this, and pay you this. This was the worst paying. And then they also paid for my real estate license, which is super expensive. Kind of, I guess it's fairly expensive. There's just a few things in there, but then I have to stay with the company for so long. Otherwise I have to pay that back. And it was in there, like if I work for the company for a year, based on how much revenue I can increase with the management company, I get shares back in the company then I get an ownership kind of bonus year end. So as hard as I work for the management company, I could make extra money by being an owner in the company, which I found a lot of benefit in. And so I signed a contract. It's for 2 years. We reevaluated it after a year. You sign your life away after college, so just sign a piece of paper and take the risk.
And generally, that would be one of the reasons that you would sign a contract. If the company was going to like pay for you to go to school or pay for you to get some sort of license, then they want to make sure that they're going to get the worth out of you for that. But primarily employers in this area just do kind of verbal contracts. So they'll call and say, hey, we want to offer you this job. It's going to be this much. They might send you over like the parameters of your salary and your benefits and stuff like that. So I would always recommend that when you're job searching and someone calls to give you an offer, that you ask for a little time to think about it and ask for all of those documents and take those documents and show them to people who know what they're talking about. So we've looked over those kinds of things here before. Certainly we can't advise you on whether to accept or not accept a job, but we can explain to you what those kinds of things mean. We also have a ton of alums who are HR people who would be happy to sit down and say, this is a good deal, this is not a good deal, or this is what this means, just so that you can kind of understand what that means. Any company that doesn't want to give you at least 24 to 48 hours to think about an offer, that's a red flag.
I think I've waited a week every time, like every offer I've waited, unless I really, really wanted it and it was something that I was like, I need to jump on it now. But no one's ever going to make a decision right away. And most job offers that I've had tell me to think about it. They're like, this is the offer, this is what we're willing to do. Take some time, let us know, like really think about it. I've never signed a contract. To answer your question, I have signed a non-compete clause. So if I ended up leaving under like this whatever company, so like my last job I had to sign one, so I'm not allowed to work in an energy company for however long, which I'm not too torn up about personally, but I mean, it is what it is. Some people can get out of it, but they normally, all contracts now are just everything that they're willing to give you benefits wise, what you're going to work, things like that. Any sort of like code or club policy. So like the Boys and Girls Club, I had to sign a contract that said that I wouldn't be hanging out with small children by myself. Like that's the contract, is that you have to be professional. And if there's one adult and one child, that's not okay. There has to be at least 2 adults. If there's only 1 kid and whatever. So
I'd also say you can, like you get that 1-page summary, maybe take some time to like look at it, and you can always go back to the drawing board. Like you're valuable, know that, and the business knows that you're valuable, and that's why they're offering you this job. And so you might like one benefit and not like the pay. And I'm not saying you have to negotiate, but you can negotiate. I mean, you're in the driver's seat, not necessarily them. They're offering you a job, and that's why I believe every person should go apply for 10 internships, get hopefully 10 offers, or you apply for 100, you get 10 offers. You're in the driver's seat. You have 10 internships to choose from, or 10 jobs to choose from. Apply for a whole bunch and then ask similar questions, see what the best benefits pay, what that is. Like, this is funny that I say this because when my boss came in, I said, I don't even really care what it is. If you offer me a job, he put down a contract, I read through it, and I was like, all right, can I sign? He's like, you want to think about it? I'm like, nope. If I think about it, my parents weren't going to be happy with me. And I was just like, I'm signing this thing. I'm all in. And so, yeah. Also, don't be afraid. Like, I think it was tough to tell my parents that I wanted to do this and take a risk. And it was like the hardest thing when I wasn't going to be a teacher to tell my parents that. And it was the hardest thing to tell them I was going to take a job that didn't have security. It was just like very, very tough. But like, it's your life. You got to live it. And if you do what you love every day, you really won't work. Like I'm at the office and it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm still fine with that. So you got to like who you're working with and what you're doing. You work a lot in your life. So do what you love.
And another good promo, Nick kind of teed me up here. We are going to do a salary negotiation workshop in December. So in between semesters, since you guys have such a long semester, we're going to do a couple of seminars that we think are going to be worthwhile. So keep an eye out. We don't have a date on that yet, but that's going to be within the first 2 weeks of December. We're going to do a salary negotiation workshop.
I also know most of you are here probably for credit, but I really advise you to start going to these things. Like I went to all 4 of Sioux City GO's events for like 3 years in a row. I think I missed 1 because of wrestling, but they're very, very helpful. Whether it's Sioux City GO or like when I was at Morningside, like Wells Fargo would come on campus, or Century 21, another real estate company that's a competitor, came to campus. And so like putting yourself out there and going to these events help a ton. If you take one thing away from tonight or any event you go to, it was worth the hour of your time, or one connection, or like I said, one point. It was worth your time. An hour of your time is not that much. So.
And that
or
seems
if you
like
want to meet anyone for Sioux City GO, sorry, Stacy.
No, you're okay.
We have so many people that are in so many different job avenues within our organization that if you want to tell one of us like what you're interested in and really want to sit down and kind of talk to someone who's already in that professional setting, we can do that for you as well. If you don't want to go through Stacy and Alex.
Yeah. Or you can get our contacts, shoot me an email. We'll invite you to some event and I'll introduce you to 10 Sioux City GO members. You can come to a meeting, or like sometimes we have Go Third Thursdays or other more like what I would call the fun events. You know, the board meetings aren't always fun.
About board meetings.
But or like general meetings aren't that fun. But they're still like good to see everybody, and like I like chit chatting, so we can introduce you. And like I said, I'll pick you up in Morningside if I have to. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, that seems like an appropriate place to conclude. It's been an hour. We do really appreciate the insight from Nick and Kaylin. And again, would just promo to you guys that we're going to do another one that's the same kind of vein, but more focusing on kind of that transition from becoming a student to a professional, just in a couple weeks. So keep an eye out on your email.